Hi, welcome back to another Intro to Jazz Vinyl 2021. Today we're talking about the Acoustic Sounds Verve Reissue series. And if you're a keen-eyed observer, or if I've been holding this way, you could see this actually isn't a record from the Verve record label. This is on Impulse. So it's a little bit of a confusing name for several reasons. So let's unpack what this series actually is. Acoustic Sounds is the retail outlet for Chad Kassem, his company that sells all manner of things, including records from all labels. And Chad Kassem also owns a pressing plant, Quality Record Pressings, and they press things for other people. They do, for example, all the Jimi Hendrix reissues, the family authorized reissues. They do all the Beatles stuff. But then Chad also has Quality Record Pressings pressing his own reissues, typically under a label called Analog Productions. So that should be familiar to you if you've seen some of the other videos on this channel, or you're just pretty familiar with the jazz reissue landscape right now. Analog Productions is a huge player in that area, and not just in jazz. They did an excellent set of Beach Boys reissues. They've done like Norah Jones. So anyhow, Analog Productions is Chad Kassem's reissue company. Quality Record Pressings, or QRP, is his pressing company. And then the retail aspect of that, which actually existed before he made QRP, is Acoustic Sounds. So this is branded as Acoustic Sounds and not Analog Productions, and then also as Verve Records. So let's look at a Verve record then. So here we go. This was an earlier reissue. This is Getz Gilberto. So Stan Getz and João Gilberto. And as you can see, this one is actually a Verve record. So this is a great bossa nova album. And let's take a look at the packaging. We have what I imagine is a reasonably faithful recreation of the original, with the exception of the barcode here, which wouldn't have existed. And we have a gatefold. So this is a very nice, high quality Stoughton tip-on gatefold jacket. In that way, it is very similar to the Tone Poets. One difference, though, is that actually this record was originally a gatefold. So it's not filled with the same photos. The kind of the back of the album, the liner notes, or on the inside of the album. That was a sort of hallmark of this guy right here, which you probably can't read, Creed Taylor. Creed Taylor was associated with Verve Records, and before that he was associated with Impulse Records. And after Verve, he was associated with CTI Records, CTI, Creed Taylor Incorporated, I believe. So he definitely left a lasting legacy on jazz packaging with the idea of packaging a single LP as a gatefold. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. These Acoustic Sounds Verve reissue series are gatefolds. Stoughton tip-on gatefold, really nice, high-quality jacket, great-looking cover art. And, all analog from the original master tapes for the most part. I think maybe there are a couple that actually Chad decided that wasn't the best source and went with something else. But for the most part, we're dealing with the original master tapes. These have sort of a complicated history as far as the mastering goes, though, because, for example, Analog Productions issued this on 45 RPM over a decade ago. Apparently, it's pretty common practice when you have a mastering engineer get the tapes out of the vault. Hey, we're going to reissue Getz Gilberto. So, they get the assets from the record label. You're in the studio. You've got the tapes dialed up. You figure out what you want to do with it, and you master it at 45. I guess it's commonplace, or so I've read, to go ahead and just master it at 33 RPM at the same time. And maybe you don't plan to put it out. Maybe you don't even have the rights to put it out, but it's a lot easier to have that in the can, so to speak, or the metalwork for that, than to have to get it out again later. So this particular one is actually a a pretty old set of metalwork that has been around for a long time and just never used. But some of the masterings are brand new. I believe this would be the new one. So this is Peggy Lee, Black Coffee, Decca Records. And I don't think this was originally a gatefold. And so you'll see on the inside of this, now we're getting the Tone Poet vibe. So let me get the record out of the way. And you can see we've got nice glossy photos on the inside. Again, it's a very nice jacket. I'm assuming it's a pretty faithful reproduction of the original, and the colors look great. And they obviously put a lot of care into recreating the artwork. I believe this one was mastered by Ryan K. Smith at Sterling Sound, but let's see. Yes, RKS Sterling. So one of the interesting things that Chad Kassem has talked about, and he's got a YouTube channel through Acoustic Sounds, so you can check those out if you want to go down that rabbit hole, is he didn't want to commit to using one mastering engineer for the entire series. And he has some things that he's got Kevin Gray working on, some things he's got Ryan K. Smith working on. He put out something that Bernie Grumman had mastered. And I think, he wants the flexibility to use people he knows and trusts that are able to work when and where he needs them to in order to keep this reissue series going. So that was on Decca Records, Peggy Lee, Black Coffee. The first one, Get Gilberto, was on Verve. And this one that I'm happening to not have opened yet is on Impulse Records. So this is Ray Charles, Genius plus Soul equals Jazz, Impulse Records. And this was the second catalog title. But really, I think this was the first one that was recorded, and the first four were all kind of released at the same time. So I thought it would be kind of a fun little unboxing. And before, or shrink wrapping. Before I do that, I just want to draw your attention to one thing. So this is the Impulse 60th example. And again, it's got the hype sticker here, the Acoustic Sounds Verve reissue series. Verve did have a series in 2018 and 2019 called Vital Vinyl, and that's a different series. And I actually don't have any of those. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad, but I do know that it is not going to be the kind of A+ white glove treatment that these are. Okay, so what do we got here? Let's find out. So again, we've got the brilliantly glossy gatefold, single LP gatefold. Open it up, nice little crackle to it. And you'll see this looks an awful lot like the Get Gilberto. You got the picture on one side, you got the text on the other. This album is a few years earlier, and lo and behold, produced by Creed Taylor. So Creed Taylor was the main creative force behind Impulse Records, which was spun off by ABC. And in the early days, Creed Taylor was signing interesting cast of characters. His MO was kind of people that had been famous, maybe a little bit past their prime or past their notoriety, and then mixing them up in new settings. In this case, Ray Charles wasn't past his prime, but having an Oregon jazz record, Ray Charles was on ABC. So I think, that was probably called in a favor for that. Eventually, if you are familiar with Impulse, it has a nickname, the house that train built. So pretty soon after founding Impulse, Creed Taylor left to go to Verve, and someone named Bob Thiel came in, and I think his first session that he ever worked on was Coltrane Africa Brass or Coltrane at the Village Vanguard. Something pretty intense right off the bat, and that took Impulse in a different direction. So we got this great looking jacket here, and let's see what's inside. We've got the 2020 release calendar, which is a little out of date now. And because of COVID, they actually had some problems fulfilling all these at the allotted time. But you can see here's Love Supreme. There's some real heavy hitters: Bill Evans' Trio 64, Trio 65, a couple of Nina Simone albums. These are all great. Some people have called this the kind of not Blue Note Tone Poet series, and I think if you're familiar with the Tone Poet series, that is not the worst way to think about it. I'm pretty sure this one was mastered by Kevin Gray at Coherent Audio, and he told a cool story about that. Yeah, KPG at CA. And the story he had to tell about it was that because the Ray Charles estate owns the masters, because Ray Charles negotiated that he would own his masters for ABC, that the master tape boxes had Braille on them. That's how they knew that they were Ray Charles's master tapes. So the Impulse labels are this very distinctive orange and black deal, at least in the early to middle years of Impulse. And this is a pretty good reproduction of the original. Comes in this nice rice paper sleeve, by the way. Sorry for the little microphone noise there. And what I thought would be fun, we can actually go ahead and A/B this, because I have an original mono copy of Genius plus Soul equals Jazz. That's not a flex or anything. This album, until the reissue came out, wasn't super popular. So I got this for maybe $20 a couple years ago. This is mono, not stereo. But you can see, these are, this is a very faithful, I would say, reproduction. The new one just looks better. The only difference on the back, again, the barcode. But I would say this is a home run for sure. As far as taking the time to really recreate this, I just tore the inside of this gatefold. So that's a bummer, but you got the liner note side, you got the Ray Charles side, and I'll show you. Here's the Acoustic Sounds one, liner note side, Ray Charles side. Actually, I didn't see the Creed Taylor signature on the original. Let's see. Nope, it's there. Yeah. So I can't do like a head-to-head. I can, but it's not going to be very meaningful, because my original copy is mono, the reissue is in stereo. But the last thing I can show you is just the records themselves. And I think at 10 paces, you'd never know. They really try to stick to the original. If you're up close, the reissue has a small line of text, but this is, they did it right. They got it right. Chad Kassem prides himself on the little details here, and I think the Verve conglomerate of all the labels that they own liked his track record and wanted to work with him. I'm sure he worked it out that the packaging, the presentation has to be just right, because he understands that that's what a certain type of record nerd is really hoping for. Now, that's not to say there's never any mistakes. In fact, there was an interesting one that happened. Let me grab it. With a Love Supreme, minor. But again, they did a great recreation of the jacket. But on the label, side one, so you got part 1, acknowledgement, part 2, resolution, and side 2, part 3, pursuance, side 4, resolution. So they got the tracks a little bit messed up. They doubled resolution and accidentally omitted Psalm. They've repressed this album since, and I wonder if they corrected the label. Maybe that'll be one of these goofs that helps you know whether you got an early pressing of this or not, because I got this on release day. It's been out of stock for quite a long time, and I guess that'll just I'll just wrap up with final point about that. Whether we're talking about the Acoustic Sounds Verve Reissue series or the Blue Note Tone Poet series, these are not supposed to be limited series. That said, there are delays in the pressing industry across the board I would say in the record production industry. Sometimes that's just having the time to get on the press, and it could also be because of the jackets themselves. So Stoughton Printing is now the go-to place for the top-notch printing for these types of reissues. I mean, they were before, but now they have even more notoriety. I'm sure they're having even more customers, and everything's just taking longer. So when these things go out of stock at Acoustic Sounds and they kind of evaporate at other sellers, the prices for these records on the secondary market skyrocket from, let's say, $25 to maybe $100. But Chad, in the case of the Acoustic Sounds Verve Reissue project, and Joe Harley, the Tone Poet of the Tone Poet series, have reiterated time and again, they're coming back in stock soon. They're still in print. They're awaiting a repress, and when they do, if you can just be patient, whether it is A Love Supreme or Grant Green Nigeria in the Tone Poet series, and I haven't been aggressively keeping stock of these things. I'm trying to see if there's another one here that I think is sold out. Those are the two that come to mind. Oh, Chet Baker Sings with the Tone Poets. If you can be patient, you'll be able to get it much cheaper than when it's out of stock. On the other hand, you might decide if it could be a year and you're going to listen to it 30 times or 50 times or 100 times in the next year, and that's worth a $70 premium to you, then go for it. But just wanted to pass that little nugget along. So I think that's that. Analog Productions, Acoustic Sounds, quality record pressings, Verve, Decca, Impulse. Lots of cool stuff happening now. It's a great time to be collecting these type of vinyl reissues. And I'll see you next time.